Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Idahoan Show. Today, I am pleased to announce that I have published another novel. This one is a Western, and it's titled The Good, the Bad, and the Forgiven. It's kind of exciting for me to finally see this in print, just because I've been working on it for so long. This all started back when I was in college. One Sunday before church, some of us guys were standing around talking, and one of them was telling us about the latest piece of Christian literature that he'd read, which was a book about a fictitious character's fictitious conversations with God, through which the author, of course, was presenting kind of his own theology. He explained that while this book was not exactly a thriller, it had some content in it that he found very thought-provoking. Well, another participant in this conversation was a local cowboy by the name of Dewey. And I remember how, upon hearing that, Dewey responded that if it wasn't as exciting as Louis L'Amour, it wouldn't hold his attention. Well, I was fairly well read on Louis L'Amour, or his literary works at that time, and so it occurred to me to wonder why you couldn't write a book that would be simultaneously as exciting as Crossfire Trail or The Quick and the Dead, and still be as theologically thought-provoking as the book that this other guy was talking about. And so I set out on a quest to compose a literary masterpiece that would bridge the gap between theology and Western action. And so I imagined up a protagonist who was kind of a cross between your typical Louis L'Amour hero and your typical Southern Baptist minister. And I put this character in a fictitious town set in the Old West, and populated this town with a wide array of colorful characters, some of whom were very pious and others of whom were very villainous. And as I sat down to really start writing this literary masterpiece, it rapidly became apparent that I had bitten off way more than I could chew. So I kind of got burnt out with the project and set it aside, and I worked on it a little bit here and there over the years, but I wasn't making much progress very quickly. However, part of my personal philosophy, almost code of ethics, if you will, is that I always finish what I start. For me, as someone who is inspired relatively easily, or to whom inspiration comes with staggering frequency, I think this is an important matter of practical philosophy, because if I let myself start projects without limit and without finishing ones that I was already working on, I could easily find myself in a position of having started a million different projects and never finished anything. So I'm pretty careful to limit myself as to how much I'm willing to start before finishing the projects that I'm already working on, especially projects of a given type. And so it got to a point where I felt like this project had been sitting on the shelf for far too long, and I needed to figure out what I was going to do with it. Of course, not everything that I start ends up working out the way that I'd anticipated. Sometimes I have ideas that don't actually work. So I tried to do an honest assessment of what I'd already written. I tried to evaluate it objectively, and what I came back with was that what I'd written, while it might not live up to my original delusions of grandeur, was too good to just throw away. And it really didn't lend itself well to either being condensed into a short story, with what I'd already written, or to incorporating it into some other literary project. So that really left me with only one option, and that was to finish the book. So, looking at my original outline, I pared it down. Some of the characters that were originally intended to be, round, dynamic characters got demoted to being relatively minor, flat characters. Others got cut entirely. I trimmed down the plot a little bit, tried to keep it as focused and certainly keep it moving, make sure it was a fairly fast-paced book, and try to keep it engaging, hopefully. Some of the theological content got pared down as well. And then I bit the bullet, as they say, and put my nose to the grindstone, or rather my fingers to the keyboard, and finished it. And eventually got it through editing and so forth, and now have it in print. So, all that to say, if this reads kind of like an abridged edition of a much longer volume, that's why. If I hadn't done any trimming, it probably would have ended up being 2,000 pages instead of 200, except that I probably would never have actually finished it if I hadn't come back and trimmed it down a little to make it manageable. So, I'll be interested to see how this is received by readers. And I'm really not sure what to expect, because on the one hand, I cannot escape the sense that this is not quite the literary masterpiece I originally set out to write. It doesn't live up to my original delusions of grandeur. On the other hand, I honestly think it is a pretty good Western with a uniquely Christian twist to it. I hope it's not too much of a B-Western. I mean, I definitely made use of some of the common or even obligatory Western stereotypes, and I hope that I have done so in a way that is original and not cliche, but I guess that too will be for the reader to judge. Anyway, this is available on Amazon, both as a paperback and also as an ebook. More than likely, I will make some signed copies available on eBay, kind of like I did with my previous novel. I'll give you more details on that when and if I get around to setting that up. So, in any case, thank you for watching The Idahoan Show.